Okay, good evening. This is Carmel River School Principal Jay Marden, and it is my pleasure this evening to host Carmel River School's distance learning orientation. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy evening to join me. I'm actually excited to share this orientation with you. It's the culmination of much work this summer. And I know that parents are very curious, very anxious to understand our program that we're going to be delivering remotely this fall. And so let's get started. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank a number of people. I'd like to thank the school board. I would like to thank the management team, the teachers, for their tireless work this summer in preparing for our students' program. We weren't preparing just for full remote learning. We were preparing for a hybrid option as well, and even a full school return. We know in the end that that decision was made for us by Governor Newsom. Our county, of course, is on the watch list, so a full return or a hybrid return to school right now is not possible. I also want to thank you, the parents, because you have been thrown into that proverbial frying pan. And I know that it's been an exceptional challenge. And I want to say thank you. And I commend you for your dedication. And I commend you for your patience as well. I can only imagine being in your shoes and having gone through this with my own children. All three of my boys are in their 20s. They went through river school, but managing little ones through this pandemic has got to be an incredible challenge. So I want to thank you for your dedication to your children's education. I feel it, and we're going to do our very best this evening to share what I think is a real high quality program with you. This certainly is not a journey that we all were desirous to undertake. But nevertheless, it's a journey that's been thrust upon us, and there are significant challenges along the way. I just described some of them that parents have faced, and I know that staff too. They didn't get into the business to work in a full remote capacity. They want to be with your children day in and day out. And I know that they too are hurting over not being present and not interacting with your children. But I know how committed they are, and it's evident by all of the hard work that they've done this summer. There's no rest for the weary. They're fully committed. And it's obvious from the extensive professional development that they've been engaging in this summer, and they're going to continue full-time next week as well. You know, at first we were all reluctant again to take this journey, but reluctance is no longer an option. Right now, our children deserve the very best that we have to offer. So we're going to aspire to meet that goal and to put 100% of our energy into achieving that outcome. So join me this evening again as I take you through all of the different slides that we're going to discuss. And I also want to introduce to you in a moment here Paul Bean, who is our district's director of technology. Parents are aware that you had an opportunity to submit questions for me to integrate into this presentation this evening. I've done that to the best of my ability. There are some questions I was not able to answer. There's just too much to digest. You can imagine there's dozens and dozens of questions that I did in fact read. I will get back to parents if you feel that your question was not answered this evening. However, there is a change in this evening's presentation as well, and that is we were originally going to interact with you through chat, but I am pleased to say that while you will be able to use chat, more importantly, you'll be able to ask questions live that Paul Bean is going to manage, and he's going to describe that process for you right now.
Hey everybody, welcome. We've got, looks like 213 attendees, Jay, in
Oh,
case you
great.
weren't nervous already. Yeah, so just a couple of notes. First, Mr. Marden will go through the presentation, and then when he's done, you will have a chance to open up for live questions. You should find somewhere on your screen an icon of hand, and if you click on that, that will show up as a raised hand on my screen, and then it'll put you in order to be called on to ask your question. When it's your turn to be called on, I will announce, that you're on, and I'll turn on your mic. As soon as your question is done, I'll turn off your mic. Jay will answer your question, and I'll be in the background getting ready for the next person. To the best of my ability, I'll try to give you a heads up. Like I may say, okay, Mr. Smith, you're up next, and then following him, Mrs. Jones. But it depends how much juggling I have to do, but I will do my best to make it clear whose turn it is and give you a little cue when you're coming up. One thing to be aware of, if you continue to click on that hand icon, it'll raise and unraise. And every time you've unraised it, if you raise it again, you'll go back to the bottom of the queue. So it's fine if you want to unraise your hand. For example, someone may have asked your question already. You can click the unraise hand and, you'll disappear. But if you really want to stay at the top of the list, just keep your hand raised, or you would lose your order. We're going to ask you to limit your questions or comments to about a minute, and that'll give Mr. Marden more time to respond, and it'll give more people a chance to get their questions asked. Jay, we're going for about an hour. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's about it. The last piece, be aware, I'm not monitoring the chat, nor is anybody, for your questions. They will be only called on, based on your hand being raised. I will not be able to see much of the chat because of all the other functions we're doing here. So just so you're aware of that. And with that, Jay, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to start by saying, parents, please know that this evening is dedicated to our distance learning program. This evening, we will not address a potential hybrid return. We will not address a full return to school. It is focusing solely on distance learning. And when that time does come, where we return to school in a hybrid mode or in a full school mode, I promise that we will conduct another orientation that will inform you of the next model that our students and staff and parents are going to experience. Tonight's concentration, again, all on our distance learning program. Okay? All right. So, the California has learning standards that it has communicated to public schools that we are expected to follow. And it's a great springboard into our discussion this evening, so you can understand the framework by which we are working from. So I want to quickly take you to those standards in the form of an infogram right here. And these are the standards that we are going to be aspiring meeting. We've got daily live interaction. And what constitutes daily live interaction, we're going to get into in the presentation this evening. We also are mandated to take attendance. And we're not just mandated to take attendance, we also have to gauge students' engagement and their participation during their day as well. It's not an option. It's something that's expected of us, and I'll get into more detail about later as well. We're going to talk about our school day, the fact that for kindergarteners, we have to have instruction that comprises 180 minutes a day. That's 3 hours. We need 3 hours and 50 minutes for grades 1 through 3 and 4 hours for grades 4 through 12. And again, more detail to come about more specifically what that school day will entail in a bit. And of course, we're going to have to continue to offer services to students who are in need, students who need additional academic support, students who we were previously monitoring and providing programming and service to. So that is something also on our list. It is a goal of ours that I'm confident we'll achieve too in this remote learning environment. Know that, again, there is no set requirements for live instruction. However, our staff is very busily taking up this question about how many minutes, for example, are going to be live instruction, how many minutes are going to be devoted to pre-recorded videos or to online assignments that are independent in nature. So we'll get into the weeds of that in this presentation as later, so parents know what is expected of them and their students. We have to prevent against disengagement. Again, we have to attest to the fact that kids are engaged in their program during the day, not just simply from one check-in in the morning in the form of, for example, a class meeting. We actually have to ensure that we are monitoring their performance and their participation throughout a day. We're certainly going to provide for families connectivity. We'll get into that as well by providing hotspots to those families that need that type of assistance. And I already spoke to this engagement process as well, where it's not just the teacher that has to attest to the fact that the students are engaged, but I need to sign on the dotted line that that is the case as well. So this is the framework by which we're going to have our discussion this evening. Okay. All right. Okay. So our school day is going to be from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. and that excludes breaks and it excludes lunchtime as well. I'll even share with you that we actually have a large chunk of time that is in sync with middle school in case you have an elementary student and a middle school student and you need a break. So the lunch times will sync nicely. And here is a reference as well based on SB 98 state law that we have to meet those number of instructional minutes. I already spoke to the fact that attendance and participation is required, and that here's the key point, that students need to be available to teachers from the 9 o'clock hour to the 2 o'clock hour. Now, if you have fear or if you have anxiety about that, which is absolutely justifiable given your work commitments and things of that nature, don't worry. We're going to address that in a little bit here about how there will be a significant percentage of your program that you will also be able to work with your child on that is actually outside these hours. So we'll talk about that as well in a little bit. Stakeholder responsibilities. Who are the stakeholders? Well, it's our staff, of course, entering into a partnership with you. And you can see here that the staff responsibilities, of course, will entail taking attendance, ensuring participation, the curriculum development. We're going to talk this evening about managing the Google Classroom platform, which is a requirement for all of our teachers. They've been busily engaging again in staff development so that they can best understand this platform. And of course, that's an ongoing process. We need, clearly we're going to make mistakes along the way. And I hope and I believe that because our school community is such a positive, supportive community as well, that we will understand that of each other, parents and staff, as we seek to support our students. We're going to be vulnerable, but we're going to work hard in order to meet our stated student goals. We're going to be recording lessons as well. We're going to talk about that this evening in a little while, and also the role that Zoom will play in classroom instruction. And of course, this is something here, number 6, monitor, evaluate, and give feedback on student work that all of us know, our teachers know, I know, is an area of improvement. Of course, we were thrust into this pandemic in a 2-day window to exit our classrooms and then to create programs that were all unfamiliar to us. And we have already, again, as I mentioned, through staff development, we're learning and collaborating together to best understand practices that will enable us to engage in more frequent feedback to students daily. Not to necessarily all students every day, definitely weekly feedback, and we're going to do our best as we work with different students day in and day out to achieve that goal, okay? And of course, what is at the heart of a healthy partnership? Always, it's good communication, all right? You can see, I will not read for you what we're asking of you as well, and I'm going to share some resources with you, the parents, a little later in the presentation too, that I think will be helpful as you're trying to assist your child. Now, getting into a bit more of the weeds of this presentation. Again, I mentioned earlier that we're going to ensure that our students have internet connectivity. And I want to share with you that we're going to be delivering Chromebooks to every single student on the first day of school, which is going to be August 11th. That includes kindergarten as well. Every student provided with a Chromebook, because we know, depending on the grade level, that students are going to be engaged online at each grade level, but we're also going to be providing hard copy materials, especially at the younger grades, where we think that that mode of instructional delivery is especially important. Now, last year, I should say in the spring, we only had 2 distribution periods. We want to share with you that we're going to have regular distribution periods of materials where parents would pick up materials and drop off materials for teachers to review and to give students feedback about. So please expect that there will be more distribution periods built into our schedule. We are going to align our curriculum with critical grade level standards. I once read that if a student in K through 12 were to master all of the grade level standards that they were charged with learning, they would be 27 years old by the time they mastered all of them, if they were a good student. And so what I'm sharing with you is, you can imagine that we're going to have to draw down in this environment more so and focus with laser-like focus on those critical grade level standards that students need to understand, need to build a foundation from, okay? Many of the questions that parents submitted to me in terms of that Google Doc emphasized as well, will there be grade level planning? I have now met this week with all of my teachers. And again, thank you, teachers, if you're out there, because you're technically off the clock, but Lord knows you haven't been. And they all met with me to share the productive grade level planning that is already occurring. We want our students to have more of a uniform and common experience, regardless of what classroom that they're in. That takes grade level, that takes joint planning. I can assure parents that you're going to see class to class programs that are much, much more similar. And when we get into talking about the details of Google Classroom, I think you'll see that that is evident as well. All right. I already mentioned that we're going to have supports to address the needs of students, not just academic supports, but later in the presentation, we're also going to talk about socio-emotional supports and making those available to students as well. And later too, I will describe in greater detail how our special education program will be delivered. I will also provide a link to families who have students who have IEPs or 504s. You'll be able to access that special education handbook to serve as a good guide for you through this remote learning period. And same holds true with English language development, that our English language development, yes, will continue. It will continue, of course, through full remote learning. More on that later. But this is the one I think that is getting an awful lot of attention again, which is the daily live interaction that is expected, is mandated by the state for teachers to engage their students in. And it can take a variety of forms. It can be individual Zoom. It can be small group Zoom. Live interaction can be working on an online assignment with a teacher. It can be, of course, a morning meeting that a teacher will be engaging in. There's a variety of instruction that has broad definitions in terms of it constituting that live interaction that the state is requiring of us. And for our staff, where this gets really important is when we get down here where we talk about synchronous and asynchronous learning. You're going to hear a lot about that, parents. Synchronous learning really means truly live instruction. It's whole group, it's small group, it's individual. Zoom, for example, where a teacher is working in live time with a student directly. Asynchronous lessons are those lessons, for example, that might be pre-recorded by a teacher, and then the teacher assigns the student to view that. They might have a follow-up assignment as well. Anything that is completed independently that a student can access, maybe even after the school day, that works best for the family, that's an example of asynchronous learning. And that was a question posed on the survey as well. I asked parents, what do you feel is going to work well for your family as far as synchronous and asynchronous learning? Our staff is having that conversation right now. I don't want to commit by saying that it's going to be hypothetically 75% asynchronous, 25% synchronous, but I want to let you know that we are taking the results of that survey to heart. And at the same time, I want to share with you a very interesting takeaway from this past spring, where I heard a lot from parents who were very desirous of synchronous learning and prolonged periods of time being devoted to Zoom. And I believe, based on the feedback I'm getting, that that has shifted significantly. Now that we're in this for the very long haul and parents are trying to manage their careers and manage their students' education from home, there's a real desire for asynchronous learning as well. And this last bullet down here says that asynchronous learning may be accessed by families in and outside 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock school day. So in fact, if a teacher has an asynchronous lesson that they want students to complete and it doesn't work well for that family, then yes, the student could complete that after hours when it does. When a student does need to be present, though, by state mandate as well, is when we need to do live sessions. So hypothetically, I wouldn't even say hypothetically, when we do our morning meeting, daily check-in with our students, and I will share with parents at kindergarten, it may look a little differently, but at other grades, logging in at 9 o'clock to a Zoom meeting where the teachers will greet the students and then they will share with students what their day is going to look like, what is expected of them. That's an example of something that is required and that we cannot be flexible about. But again, I believe you'll find that our programs are very flexible with the asynchronous learning that is going to be occurring throughout the day. So our platform, I've mentioned a couple times, is going to be Google Classroom. We are no longer, of course, in the brick and mortar building. So Google Classroom is essentially that brick and mortar. And what I mean by that is this is where we are going to house all of our adopted programs that are aligned with the content standards in Google Classroom. This is where we're going to push out instructional videos. This is where we're going to push out the students' assignments for the day, for the week. This is where we're going to have links to other programs or platforms for students to engage in. This is where we're going to also engage in feedback to students, feedback to parents, and evaluate student work. So we understand and we heard you loud and clear, and we've always been committed to actually wanting to have more uniform practices and have a sort of a one-stop-fits-all approach that when a parent is managing their child's life, their school life, they can go to one location. This is going to be that location. And to give you more of a detailed example, take a look at this. So this is going to be, it says draft, but we're very close to finalizing what a student's weekly schedule is going to look like, and it's going to be the same. The template is going to be the same for every student, regardless of grade level. So every week, you will go into Google Classroom. This will be posted in Google Classroom, and you will see what your child's assignments are. You will see where the Zoom links are as well. You will see the specialist schedule Zoom links also that will be embedded into this weekly schedule. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specialist services and their schedule in just a moment here. But again, I just want to share with parents that you're going to have this schedule to refer to. I think it's gold if I were a younger parent. That again, you're going to be able to refer to. I hope that you find it exceptionally helpful. Our specialist programs, notice I said that they are required, and that is, again, because specialists have to take attendance. And specialists, of course, have their more specific craft that they're teaching, and the way they're going to engage the students this year. We don't want to overload students and parents, and we don't want to overload the specialists by having Zoom meetings in every single subject area. When I say subject area, I mean specialist program during the same week. So as you look at these specialist programs, what we're going to do is we are going to rotate every other week. So half of the grade levels, half of the classes would be engaged, for example, in a science Zoom lesson, and half the kids during the week, the other half, would be engaged in a pre-recorded lesson. It could be a science lab that is recorded that students later will meet with the science teacher to discuss. So 1 week, a lesson with a specialist will be synchronous, and then the next week it will be asynchronous. I hope that makes sense. In a little bit here, feel free, please, to ask questions. But again, it will be synchronous, then asynchronous, so that they're not Zooming all to every single classroom every single week. Now you do know, and please know that music, science, PE, Spanish, computer, those classes are going to be regular, and we're still having conversations about what garden looks like. We're going to have a garden commitment to kinder students right now. The science commitment is grades 1 through 5. Spanish, you can see, is 1 through 5. Library and art will not be as consistent because Mrs. Woodward, for example, serves different schools, Tularcitos, Captain Cooper. And in the library, at this point in time, we cannot open the library for safety and welfare reasons to families, but we are absolutely committed to distributing books to families as they request them on our website. So we'll have a concierge approach, for example, whether or not that's rolling books out to cars outside our school, or whether or not that's putting books outside the library. Students will have full access to our library as well. Socio-emotional support in school community. Is this not one of the most difficult, if not ironic, titles that I actually could have in our presentation this evening? Because how do we deliver quality socio-emotional support when we're doing this from a distance? We're not going to tell you it's going to be the same in person. We're just going to tell you that our counselor, Veronica Kraft, our Monterey County Health Support as well, our school success team, which talks about individual student needs in terms of academics and socio-emotional assistance, where we create plans to assist students. We have the same commitment. We just have to figure out, of course, how to deliver those services differently but effectively. And we are committed as well still to maintaining and to pushing out these programs as well. Second Step, which was our adopted socio-emotional learning program just in its first year last year. Character education lessons, for example, for teachers to post in Google Classroom. We'll be talking about Kelso's choices and making good choices that students, to educate them about best practices and making choices. And of course, more than ever in this environment, we're going to have to talk a lot about digital citizenship and address anxiety and stress as well. I've even been asked about enrichment, for example, in our after-school program. We do not see right now a model, because we can't bring students back to school, where we're going to extend the day, extend the enrichment with more online work, which is a concern of ours as well. I met with the PTA this morning. Great group. Thank you again, Kim, Veronica, and Sally, for meeting with me. And I know I can hear just how committed the PTA is also to assisting us in building school community. I know that we have a directory that is going to be released much earlier than it ever has been, so we can promote connections between kids and families. Look for that, please. And I'm going to regularly meet with the PTA to talk about how best to build school community when we're having to do it from afar. I mentioned earlier in the presentation as well that special education parents, we want you to know that we are here for you. I've got a wonderful special education staff, Melissa Buki, Gretchen Romani, and the various individuals that help support the two of them to provide targeted assistance to kids so they can still meet those learning goals in IEPs and also 504s. We will be obviously reaching out to all students, all parents whose students do have IEPs and 504s. And I have uploaded this link as well, the special education distance learning handbook for you parents to refer to as well. Just real quickly, and I know you can read this, I don't want to read it all. I mentioned early in the presentation that communication is key. All of us get frustrated. All of us get exhausted, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to share that frustration as well. All of us, of course, want to be treated with respect too. Let's rely on one another in terms of the support that we can give. Let's listen better than we ever have before. Open hearts, open minds. And I think that honestly, that we can forge a better partnership than ever before, because this is such an important, in a remote learning environment, factor that's going to account for student success. We want to hear from you. And there's various ways that you can see here too, that you will be able to keep in contact with us. If your teacher can't assist you and you feel I need to, you can please contact me as well. We have tech service available by using the Tech Support Lab in ClassLink, which is our education portal as well. So let's just maintain good, positive, open communication. And when we do come out of this pandemic, and notice I said, when we do, we can hold our heads high and we can be proud of the partnerships that we've formed and the communication that we have engaged in. Okay, thank you so much. Your role, I provided some resources here that I think are excellent. I'm not going to click right now on both of them, but I'll leave Zoom practices, best Zoom practices for children, for you to review later. But if you will permit me, I'll real quickly go over, and I'm looking at my time here, I'll real quickly go over these 9 tips because, again, as a father of 3, I feel like I would have found these helpful. And those 9 tips are right here. And those 9 tips, I promise I won't review in depth, but maybe just the title: limiting distractions in this remote learning environment. Really important to make a learning space for your child. Now, easy for me to say, some of our homes don't allow for those quiet, well-organized spaces. We might have multiple children in one space. I respect that. I understand that. Your teacher will too. That's the reality that we're dealing with. If you can create a nice, clean, organized space where your child understands essentially that that is their classroom desk, it'll go a long way in promoting the fact or the idea that students are returning to, which is that they are in school. Of course, you should allow for breaks, a snack time and recess during that learning. We encourage you to not just have your children privy to or engaging in only seeing their peers during these Zoom sessions or interacting through communication on Google Classroom, but also outside of school. If they can't see each other because of limitations with social distancing, then create opportunities for them to engage online. Mixed screen time with old school learning mediums. We're going to try to do that because I believe we recognize the importance of paper pencil and how the brain operates and learns differently from that experience than it does just online. And keep in touch with other parents. I think that's very important, from how I was sort of preaching for a moment there about the power of good and positive and open communication. Come to rely on other parents as well to learn from them and how they're assisting their children best. Don't underestimate the power of a schedule. I think you understand that at this point after being in remote learning for several months. Children need to understand, rely, and believe in a schedule that is similar to school, so that it keeps them accountable to their learning. And that goes in hand in hand, of course, with not treating it as a vacation, and of course, schedule time for fun as well. There have been some changes in our grade levels. We have a new addition to kindergarten, who is Beth Haregi, and we have two new additions to second grade, which is Allison Bonin Ludis and also Mary Robinson. Mary Robinson was going to be an intervention teacher for us this school year, and second grade class size rose considerably higher than the other grades. It has been changing daily, and we have to bite that proverbial bullet now, recognizing that class size at second grade is getting up there. It was in the neighborhood of 26, 27 students. And when we do return to a hybrid model as well, we could not ensure social distancing if in fact we had 13 kids in one group and 14 kids in the other. So we have a fourth second grade class that has been added. I can share with you that at every other grade level, class size varies from approximately 18 students to 22 students. Exceptionally healthy numbers. And thank you, Mrs. Haregi and Ms. Robinson and Mrs. Bonin Ludis for all your hard work in preparing for a new grade level. Much appreciated. So these are important dates, and then we're going to get to questions. These are important dates that are upcoming, the 3rd through the 7th, teacher training and collaboration days. On August 7th, we're going to distribute class lists. Why not earlier? It is because two reasons. Number one, that Friday is the historical day that we have released class sizes, but that shouldn't dictate history and tradition, the need to do it on the 7th. The real reason is because class sizes are class composition is evolving daily. Daily students are being added to our rules, and daily students are being subtracted from our rules, more so than ever during this pandemic. So the last thing I would ever want to do is distribute early a class list and then have to contact a parent and say, we're moving your child from one class to another. We want to avoid that nightmare. So thank you for understanding the August 7th date. The first day of school again is August 11th. That will be materials pickup. That will include Chromebooks. Mrs. Barker Hall, if you're listening, being the taskmaster I am, actually the taskmaster you are, I know that we're going to have music kits that we're distributing. That will include hard copy materials as well, and any hotspots that we need to distribute too. And the hours will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. August 12th through the 13th. That is Wednesday and Thursday. Teachers are going to conduct class meetings on both days, and then they're going to reach out individually to families to introduce themselves, to say hello. Very important tone to set for the school year. And teachers will see the degree to which they'll also be able to address how to navigate, for example, technology that they're going to be using in their classroom. But pure academic instruction is going to start on August 17th. August 14th remains no school originally on the calendar because of car week. Not a lot of cars right now, certainly not the way they would have been on a typical August 14th. And finally, you're going to get much more detail than I have provided for you on August 20th at Back to School Night. Again, it's conducted virtually. That's where teachers are going to delve much more deeply into the details of their programs. And you'll be able to pose questions to them as well about any aspect of their program. But again, that is going to be where even much more detail is shared with you. For example, about specific curriculum questions, specific questions to their programs. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. And Mr. Bean, thank goodness you're going to manage the questions. That'd be a little much for me, so thank you in advance.
Yeah. Hey, Jay. Well, we've got, I don't know, let's see, looks like 6 or 8 hands raised already. And I'll paste the rules in the chat one more time before we begin, if it'll let me. And a reminder, we're not monitoring the chat. We're using the chat just to kind of give the attendees some of the information about the rules. Jay, one of the things I liked about what you said tonight, you used a line from Friday Night Lights, right? Open hearts and open minds or something
Oh,
like
I didn't
that.
know that.
Maybe it's a
Innocent,
Jay Marden
innocent.
original.
No,
All
it's
right,
not
so
original, it's innocent.
so I'll try to announce the person who is first in line and then the person who's kind of on deck. So that is, first up will be Jenica and Rob Sims, and then will come Jeffrey and Jill Lewis. After you ask your question, I will turn off your mic, so don't be surprised if you notice that happening. And again, trying to keep your questions under a minute if you can, or your comments, just so that more people have a chance to talk and so that Jay can have more opportunity to answer those questions. Thanks. So Jenica and Rob, or whichever one of you it is, here you go. If you unmute, you can take your turn.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to start off with a quick comment to say thank you to Mr. Marden. This is by far the most clear, concise, and empathetic communication I feel like we've had since we started. Not that folks weren't doing that previously. I just feel like we got a lot of great information tonight, so thank you. My question is actually fairly simple. It just has to do more with the Chromebooks. Is that going to be parentally, maybe this is for the tech team, is that going to be parentally locked down already, or is that something that will be open for us to lock down if our kids are alone with devices?
That's a great question, Jay. Do you mind if I jump in? Because
I was hoping you would.
We've got a new feature that we're going to roll out. That is, we use a filter called Go Guardian, and up until now, it has not been available to parents. One of my drums that I've been beating with the company is you really need to have some of these features available to parents. So as soon as we roll out online registration, which by the way, or what they call parent data confirmation, which is a little bit behind schedule because we've been having some issues with our Aries server, but it should be within the next day or so. When we get to online registration, there's a question on there that asks you if you'd like us to sign you up for the parent Go Guardian account. And initially, you will then be able to have the ability to see which websites your child has visited. They're adding a feature, and I don't know when, they call it vaporware when a software company promises something and it doesn't exist yet. But they're promising that soon you'll also have the ability to whitelist and blacklist websites on your own. So if you find your kid is going to a gaming site that you don't want them to spend time on, you can turn that off. And you should also be able to set windows of time. So if their bedtime is 8:30 and it's off the Chromebook, you'll be able to set those times in this Go Guardian system. So I encourage you, when you see your online parent data confirmation link being sent to you, you sign up for that feature, and then I think you'll get a lot of what you're asking for.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. And then we have Jeffrey or Jill Lewis. Here you go, if you unmute.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Jill.
That sounded like a lot of work that you did to organize that, so thank you, Jay. And yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest concern, and so I would love to hear from you on how I can manage this or if this is going to be possible. And I understand that having 3 kids in elementary school is unusual, and most parents have 1 or 2, and so it's going to be different from them. But for me, I found that I couldn't get them to work all day, and that I had to bring them to the ocean or to the river by like after lunchtime, or they were fighting and they refused to work. So I'm just wondering, like, am I going to be able to take those kind of breaks if I need to in order for them to be kind of happy at the end of the day? I'm really worried about how to get them to like stay focused online and manage all 3 of them in different Zoom lessons and doing worksheets when they fight back at me. And I just wanted to get some advice on that, and based on what you know about the schedule, like how, if I'll be able to do that sort of thing, like go surf for a couple hours so that they can kind of get that energy out, because I have a really high energy.
Sure. So Jill, the first thing I do is tease you, because I always say, what were you folks thinking when you had 3 kids? And I'm allowed to make that joke because I have 3 kids. So I can understand personally or envision what that challenge would be with 3 children. We went so far, Jill, already, because I'm not going to answer this altogether just particular to 3 children. But I had Connie Weinlein, my secretary, and I actually have already identified families that have 3 kids, because I actually think that families that have 3 kids are going to there's going to be a need for collaboration amongst the teachers, more so, of course, than if a family is only assisting 1 child or 2 children. So please know that we actually have already produced those names, and we're already thinking about plans, how best to assist those families. But I think back to the core question that involves everyone, and back to this idea of breaks as well. And I think folks would agree that the younger the kids are, of course, perhaps even the more frequent breaks they'll need. Jill, I think that one of the I think our staff is going to be very sensitive to the fact that we are going to have to allow for significant and periodic breaks. And at the same time, we're going to have to ensure that families can manage their schedules. You remember the asynchronous work that I mentioned before, when it works best for them. Again, when I went back, when I was sharing with you that it's the Zoom sessions, for example, that we would need to ensure, we're mandated to ensure that we can account for student engagement and participation. That's one way to do that. But as I look at the data, as I talk with teachers, and when I say data, excuse me, I mean the parent survey as well, I think staff and parents are on the same page with so far with recognizing that all day Zooming is not effective, it's not realistic, and it is not going to assist families who are trying to manage their children's education and their own lives. So there's going to be plenty of asynchronous opportunities that you'll be able to schedule when that works for you, Jill.
Thanks, Jay. That was a great question. Next up is Bahar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And that will be followed by Emma Case, will be on deck.
Hi, Bahar.
Hi, Jay.
Hi.
Thanks for a great slide deck. I had a question about if there's going to be any programs that will not be available 100%. I'm assuming chorus is not going to be available. What about the other music instruction and also like ALP? Is ALP going to be still around?
So great questions. I'll actually specifically address a couple of those programs that you mentioned. For example, one of them is instrumental music. We are having discussions this week. We're having a discussion tomorrow about instrumental music and the degree to which we're going to be able to provide that instruction, whether or not that instruction is going to involve all new students and all returning students, whether or not it can only involve returning students because of limitations on effective musical instruction. So I don't have an answer yet about instrumental music, for example, Bahar, but I can share with you that we will have instrumental music in some form. We just don't know how far reaching it's going to be. As far as ALP is concerned, that's the Advanced Learner Program that is available to 4th and 5th grade qualifying students. We're also having discussions about how best to roll that out as well. I can't promise anything right now because we're looking at our staffing and needs that we have in staffing. For example, if we return to hybrid, are we going to be able to have our full complement of teachers? That might require us using the full complement of our staff. But Bahar, we want to have ALP. I just don't want to say right now with certainty that we will or what it's going to look like. Just know, please, that it is a desire of ours.
All right, next up is Emma Case. Emma, go ahead. And it looks like you are muted. Are you there, Emma? Emma, I'm going to let you try again. Let's go to Andrea C. and then Greg Avant will be next, and we'll try for Emma in between there. Andrea, here you go.
Hi, thank you guys for that great presentation. I just have a quick technical question actually in regards to, obviously we'll be spending a lot of time on Zoom. What is the Zoom platform that we're using? Is it the same one that we were using in spring? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because, you know, half of the times when the kids were on Zoom, they were muting and unmuting themselves, and it was very disruptive to the instruction of the teacher. And I was wondering if there was a different kind of Zoom, you know, platform or function where the students wouldn't be able to do that and the teacher would unmute the student themselves. Thank you.
Would you like to take that, Paul?
I think the system is still the same. Like I know that where the system I'm looking at right now, it allows me to mute all students. But I think in general, we do want kids to be able to take responsibility for that themselves. And there were other distracting behaviors, you know, kids making faces on the screens and whatnot. And that's, I think, just for the classroom teacher, it's a regular part of classroom management, only it's transferred to the online environment. So I do believe they're still going to have that ability, and we're going to work on teaching them, you know, just kind of proper behavior. And over time, you know, they do seem to, you know, generally want to do the right thing. So that's how I would say we're probably going to handle that. Again, if we can give Emma Case one more chance. Are you there?
Hey guys, sorry about that. I was speaking and nothing was coming out of my mouth. One question is that, is the PowerPoint going to be available after this? I understand that the webinar is going to be available. Can we download this information later?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, no problem. My pleasure.
So I'm a little sidetracked. Was that about this presentation?
Yes.
Or the
this one
PowerPoint? Yeah. So
That's
you'll
right.
make that available, and the presentation. We have a YouTube channel. Jay, you can also send the link to the recording of this as well. Okay, so the next person up, let's see, will be Greg Avant, and then after that we've got Samuel. Greg, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Greg.
Yes.
Hey there. Thank you. Great presentation. That's very helpful. We just moved. We just moved here a month ago, and have a daughter who's going into Carmel River. Right, she'll be a third grader, and I mean, our primary concerns aren't really the distance learning. I think we can figure that out. It's more about how do the new students who don't know any of the teachers and don't know any of the other kids in the school district, are there any thoughts around that? My real concern is more social and emotional than it is her ability to get the schoolwork done, and just don't want her to spend 6 months without any other kids around.
Agreed, Greg. Greg, agreed. Great question. And that would be my concern too. So the good news is that that specific need is something that is atop our to-do list. And I'm referring to the collaboration that I'm having with my counselor, because We understand, I believe that that is an exceptionally important task, and that we don't want to have 2-3 months down the road take this up and miss, this valuable time. So Greg, I can't share with you what that's going to look like yet. But I can share with you it's going to be atop our list in terms of that socio-emotional slide when I was mentioning our commitments to ensure that people. I'm sorry, Greg, I think you said it was your daughter, that she feels a member of the school community. No doubt it's going to be tough to achieve in a remote learning environment, but there were a number of things that we did last year, Greg, that we created rather quickly that I think assisted kids in feeling that they had school community. And so I've got a great team with me, and I'm so big on school spirit and positive culture. It's so important to me. I know it's so important to our staff as well, that we're going to create, I feel, plenty of opportunities for kids to bond.
Thanks, Jay. Next is Samuel, and then after that, we've got Marie Greco on deck. Samuel, go ahead.
Okay, this is Cynthia, actually Samuel's mom. Sam would not keep it to under a minute, so I'm going to talk for him. Our question is twofold, and would the school support the idea of us developing a pod of 2 to 4 children? And if so, would the school be willing to shuffle the kids so that they were all in the same classroom?
I absolutely respect the benefit. The problem is that our first order when we engage in class placement, which is not, by the way, just a Mr. Marden exercise. I bring together the entire staff, different grade levels, including support staff, special education staff, counselors, and we engage in a very rigorous, very detail-oriented exercise that takes, seriously, in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 factors into account on each student to do our best to balance those classes as well as we can. Those criteria include socio-emotional and academic factors, family factors, things of that nature. So I understand the rationale, but no, we could not imbalance classes for the sake of that benefit.
All righty. Next up, Marie Greco, and then Diane. Marie, it's your turn.
Hello, thank you. I will also be working with a group of people, and we're kind of trying to figure out the schedule for how things will turn out. And I apologize if you've already touched upon this, but will the classroom days be Monday through Thursday only, or will they include Friday as well?
They include Friday as well.
They do. Okay, and we're kind of looking like a 9 to 1 o'clock period.
9 to 2 o'clock?
9 to 2 total, Monday through Friday.
Yes, is the commitment. Yes, with
okay.
For the most part, I'll share with you as well that those specialist programs will be in the afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Next up is Diane, and then it'll be Dominique after that.
Hi. Hi. I'm a grandmother helping with the teaching of my grandchildren along with the other grandmother. And I'm in San Diego and I'm coming up here to help. What is the proposal for September, October, and vacation for Christmas?
I'm sorry, Diane, I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, I'm a grandmother helping out with the other grandmother.
Yes.
And I'm coming from San Diego and planning my trips up here to be a teaching assistant. What is the schedule for September and October?
So we expect in September and in October to still be in the full remote learning mode. So what I have reviewed this evening, Diane, is actually what you should expect, I believe, into October. Now I do know, I will say that the school board and our superintendent are going to have another discussion about where, the state of the pandemic and where numbers are trending, but we don't expect that conversation to take place until October.
Okay, next up is Dominique and then Timothy.
Good evening, and thank you for putting this together. My family and I are new to the area as well, and my husband and I are both working, and so just with regard to the dual working families, and we have 3 children as well, 3, 5, and 7. So we have a new one going in kindergarten, and we have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader. So I guess the going back to the asynchronous learning plan, will there be, I guess, any pushback from any of the faculty or staff members if we decide to, if it's essential for us to be on a more asynchronous plan, because we just truly have no predictability when we do have to physically go in to work. So it's kind of challenging for us. And then also my other question was with regard to the Chromebooks. Is that for all of the families, or is that if we have our own devices, we'll be using our own devices? I think I missed that portion.
No, we plan on distributing, if I go backwards, we plan on distributing a Chromebook to every single student, regardless of what your situation is at home. Regarding your question about the degree to which staff, for example, will work with parents on a schedule that meets that very sincere need you stated about 2 parents working in a household. Again, I think that you're going to find that a significant percentage of your daily program is going to involve asynchronous learning. I'm sorry that I cannot say until staff collaborates more around this topic, what exactly that percentage will be. I don't feel that despite what you shared with us that that it'll be overwhelming in terms of the synchronous requirement. I know that teachers, as much as they're going to want to work with parents around what works best for them, teachers are going to be obligated to ensure that they can daily sign off on the fact that a student, again, has been engaged, has been participating, and has even been present. But I don't think, but I know that that is not going to be, this is a subjective word, overwhelming for folks where they're going to sit and be expected for hours a day to be involved in synchronous learning. So I apologize, it's not a great answer. I just think that you'll find that there is great opportunity for asynchronous learning about it when it works for your child, but there's no doubt there's going to be some required presence as well.
And regarding the Chromebooks, I do want to put a little caveat there. We've got half of our order has arrived and half of it has not. We've got a large shipment we're expecting for the TK through 2nd graders. So our goal is to give everyone a Chromebook. Early on, if you already have a Chromebook in hand, that's going to be another question in our online parent data confirmation. If you already have a device for your child, we may ask you to wait so we can get it to the most needy kids who don't have a device to use already. And initially those would be some older devices, so they won't be our top of the line, but that may be the position we're in because of shortages of devices. And I'm being told that we'll have them in time, but I'm at the edge of my seat with that. Next up, we've actually have got 4 more people with their hands raised, and Timothy, you're next, and then the person after that will be initials TAS. Timothy, it's your turn.
Hey, Jay, Tim Riley here. How you doing?
Hi, Tim.
Hey, great job putting all this together. My question is somewhat simple, or at least hopefully. I'm trying to get an understanding of what traditional homework would look like. Is it more asynchronous learning, or is it going to be above and beyond? So we're not only going to be homeschooling from 9 to 2, but right. From 5 to 7 as well, or whatever it ends up looking like. So thank you for all your efforts. So
thanks, Tim. My best to the family too. Tim, I'm laughing because it's almost like you were a fly on the wall in terms of listening to the grade level collaborations, the discussions that I've been having with every single teacher the last 2 days. And we took up this discussion about homework, this concept of homework in full remote learning. We have a concern, and I'm not going to commit fully to this yet because you just heard me say I've just started to talk to the teachers about this. I do want to share with you what a concern is. Your children are going to be involved or expected to be involved 9 to 2 in this online learning environment. And they're going to be tasked, we know, with a lot of online work. The way we would push out homework in a full remote learning environment, again, then would be in an online capacity. We have concerns that that's too much. We have concerns that when students have been engaged all day long, again online, that the last thing they need to do is engage again online in the evening. So we're having discussions about addressing, of course, critical learning, critical content standards during the 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock hours. We can see that if a student does not finish an assignment that they were assigned within 9 to 2, that could be or would be expected of the student to make up. But again, would we on top of that issue or assign homework on top of that 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock day? I'm just sharing with you, while we did not come yet to a final decision, that our staff is very concerned about that. And don't be surprised if in fact we're not assigning homework.
Okay, next, initials TAS. It's your turn. After that, it'll be Matt, and then we have about 2 other people in line to talk afterwards. If you'd go ahead and unmute TAS.
Got it. Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. And sorry for the initials. I just didn't have time to swap out my image. Really great presentation. Thank you so much. You've answered so many of my things. I didn't write my notes fast enough, so forgive me if you've already answered this. But you'll post the PowerPoint and the recording this evening, or is that going to show up tomorrow?
Paul.
Jay, can you email your PowerPoint tonight?
I can.
To your full parent group, and then we can get that posted. And then this recording, it takes a while to render, and so I
Sure.
expect within the next 24 hours. And Jay, I can let you know when that's done, or Rob will let you know when it's done, and you can announce it.
Sure, I'll do it through Blackboard, and then I'll add a note that this is just the text, and that we'll have the YouTube link where people can listen as well to the great discussion that's occurring this evening.
Okay. Next, Matt, you are up. If you go ahead and unmute, it's your turn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Hi. My question was, our youngest was enrolled in the transitional kindergarten program, and I haven't heard any mention or seen any talks of that. If that program is still happening, or what is what that would be looking like?
Yes. So Matt, that is because the TK program is operated out of the Carmelo Child Development Center. At the same time, I want to share with you, though, that the program that a student receives in TK is somewhat similar to what they experience in kindergarten. Clearly, they are younger, so there are some softer edges, perhaps. But that's because we don't at River School operate. We do not teach the TK program. That is handled out of Carmelo.
All right. Thank you, Jay. And then next up, we have got, looks like an email address. And this is our last question. So we've gone a little bit over, but we probably could entertain a couple more. If you've got a dying urge to ask a question, now's your chance. Otherwise, whoever Carmel Lander is, it's your turn.
Oops. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops. Okay, yeah, hey. Jay, yeah, this is Drew Lander. And the one thing that I think that I'm most concerned about is, it's, as you know, we've got well, this is the third one of these presentations we've sat through, because we've got, a son at the high school and 2 sons at the middle school and 3 with you. And one of the things that we had problems with, at the end of last semester or last year was really the getting 6 kids on at different times, or this year it sounds like there really is this focus to get them all on in the morning hours. And so I have one concern about broadband. Hopefully I've got enough to do that, but then the other is man, it is going to be difficult to really manage, making sure everybody's in there at those times so that they're recorded, and we've got that going. I do appreciate the asynchronous option that you are giving for the elementary. The other, didn't sound like the high school or the middle school is going to have a similar option. So I guess what I'm worried about is really that coordination with the teachers and having that flexibility if we need to jump off or be in at another time to be able to ask those questions and do that.
Great question, Drew. And you'll recall early, well, if you're on then, that I had addressed this when I was speaking with Jill about having 3 children. Again, I'm one of those individuals who does, so I can imagine what a daunting task this is. In that case, again, as I mentioned earlier, we would want to work with you to make as seamless as possible, and it's very difficult to do, your experience managing 3 different children at home. Let me give you an example. We actually have, as much as with our Zoom sessions, we are going to need to require at times their attendance and their participation. We also have the ability to record Zoom sessions as well that parents can access later too. And so I don't want to make any promises right now, Drew, in the sense of saying that you would have the option to log in only to pre-recorded Zoom lessons about when they do in fact work, because of the benefit derived from many of these live sessions. But we'll work with you on trying to best manage your situation, because I think I agree, it's going to be a daunting task. So sorry that I'm not being more specific, but I am citing at the very least an example where, because we're going to be recording lessons, because we're going to be recording Zoom, that parents are going to be able to refer to these sessions at a later time when it works for them as well.
One other question that's related to Jay is we did put out a request form for people who did not have adequate internet service. The district will have some hotspots, both Verizon and AT&T, and our priority for that, it's a limited amount, so our priority for that will be first for people with absolutely no internet, and then secondly for people that it's for all practical purposes, it's no internet because of how poor the quality is. Some of this has to be then reported back to us by the teachers and the families as to what you're experiencing. To start, we will equip the most needy families, and then we're just going to have to pay attention to that, because you're right, there's a lot of bandwidth, and then there's sometimes data limits on some of these plans if you're on satellite and stuff. So we will try to work that through, because if you have no connection, or if you got a bad connection, it can really make it a very rough go. Okay, I see 2 more hands here, and why don't we cut it off at that, Jay? It is a little after that. So Shara, you're next, and Carlene, you will be last. Here we go. Shara, if you unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you so much for taking the question. I was hoping, Mr. Marden, that you could speak a little bit more to the team teaching approach across the grade levels. I so appreciate all the hard work that the teachers put in, especially last year when they were thrown such a fast curveball. But I am painfully aware that there were some of our wonderful teachers who adapted more quickly and lively to the online platform. And I just want to know if there are going to be more sort of standards so that there will be equity from classroom to classroom in the children's experience?
Sure, certainly a goal. I'll give you an example of some of the discussion that's occurring at different grade levels, where to better harness the potential that exists in or with teaching staff, we could have, for example, in 5th grade, one teacher be responsible for math instruction, while another teacher or two would be responsible for English language arts, where another teacher would be responsible for social studies and teaming for science. And I want to assure you one thing. I don't want to go so far as to make commitments that will not materialize, but I want to share with you that's the lens that we're looking through, that we feel that if we're utilizing each other's strengths and knowledge, that we're learning from the spring, and that we are coming together as a team to create a more uniform experience for the kids. Not only is it going to have a better outcome for the students in terms of elevating their education program, but at the same time, it's even better for teachers in the sense that it doesn't have them reinventing the wheel. Teachers won't be as exhausted if they're relying on their peers for that kind of assistance, that also emotional support as well. So I think that our staff recognizes the benefit and the value that you have just described. And I do think you're going to see much more similarity across grade levels than were experienced in the spring.
And last up, Jay, is Carlene Malik. Carlene, if you would unmute, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. Thank you for taking my question. Great presentation tonight. And my question or concern is, I have a kindergartner son starting this fall or in a couple weeks, and trying to get him to understand how distance learning works and to be in front of a Chromebook and a schedule. I didn't know if there were some ways that I could get him prepared for that. I don't know if the teachers kind of teach them in the first couple of weeks of what it's going to be like and what they're expected of, just being new to an elementary school base versus the pre-K, learning through play kind of stuff that he's done.
Yes, Carlene, great question. I'll give you a quick example of the term they're using, I believe, at our secondary schools, where we're talking about boot camps, because it's really necessary that before we do a deep dive into instruction, that students understand these tools that are before them, that they understand how to interact with them in the most productive and healthy manner as well. So we are aware of, and we're committed to, at a developmentally appropriate level, having similar education opportunities for our kids about, what are the best practices for students as they interact through Zoom. How is a student going to, I know that we were talking about a kindergarten student for a moment, but again, spanning all of the grade levels, how are students going to understand and best utilize this Google platform? Again, I think that's going to be especially important. And you asked, will we be providing you with some resources to help you with that task? The answer is yes. And teachers certainly are going to address it. I can share with you that our computer technology teacher, Kirk Abbott, comprises a significant portion of his lessons during the school year as well, when we're talking about what it means to be a digital citizen. So yes, I think that staff is well aware that is a need, a high priority.
All right, Jay, that was the last question. If you want to take it home and wrap it up, this will conclude our orientation for the evening.
Well, I shall. What can I say? Thank you again. I'm blessed to be the principal of Carmel River School. I've been there an awful long time, and there is a reason. It's because I cherish the position, and I cherish the opportunity to work with your kids. I miss them. I can't wait to get back to the building where we can interact face to face. But I'm up for the challenge. I believe our staff is up for the challenge. And our most precious resource is our kids. It's not corny, it's true. And so we need to all work as healthily as we can to achieve that outcome. I invite you to join us in that endeavor, and we'll have something proud to look back on someday. So thank you again, and reach out to me, please, if you have any questions or concerns, email or phone call, and I'll wish you a good beginning of the school year. Take care, everybody.